Hello, malt mates. Welcome to the Bothy. Welcome to review number 1121. Extras, extra content, opinion, extra perspective, just extra stuff, really. And I'm going to talk about the delight of being around whisky for a number of decades and still coming across, almost tripping over superb whisky experiences, which literally there is zero marketing involved. You'll find them if you have the knowledge, and all of us only gain the knowledge through interactive social media, going to whisky festivals, chatting to folk at whisky clubs, and just doing some good old-fashioned Sherlock Holmes research. You cannot beat it. You see, we're not just talking about a bottle of whisky now. We're talking about an event. There's drama. There is discovery around it. There's the first taste of great expectations, and yet it doesn't quite deliver. Because many whiskies, when you first taste after opening the bottle, the first pour, the palate just simply needs time to get used to the experience of the smell, of the taste, but particularly of the taste. When we get more experience with whisky over time, we start to see more detail. We see more narrative in the complexity, the variety, the stuff that if we were just beginners starting out, we'd be oblivious to because we simply haven't invested in our apprenticeship. And this is why, and I totally get it. And I know, I grumble about caramel colouring and chill filtering, but there's a reason it's done, a very tangible reason. And it's because the majority of people who drink whisky are not particularly interested in flavour. It's true. It's like the majority of people who walk into a supermarket and they buy a pizza based on how many points they get in the loyalty card, how much of a discount is on it, and how bright and cartoonish is the cardboard sleeve in which the pizza is presented, either chilled or frozen. And we're in an age now where it's never been easier to be lazy and disinvested in quality when you've got the brands there to tell you all about their quality. So basically, if you accept that, you're home and dry. You buy the product, you'll have it in a bar, you'll have it at home, in your decanter, in your drinks shelf, and mission accomplished. The majority of people who drink whisky, it's not that they're not particularly interested in flavour. It's just that actually flavour can be frightening. Now, for you and I, for anybody actually who's watching a Ralphie video instead of a marketing style video for the drinks industry, you'll see that actually, people want a basic experience. And that experience is part of something else, and they want the experience without too much distractions. And it's too boring to sit through 20 minutes of whisky education when you can just pick up the advert on, well, we won't find it on Instagram, but you'll find it on television. For those who are so old-fashioned they're still watching television, bless you. And airports, up in good old-fashioned hoardings, you'll see the whisky being advertised alongside the generic corporate perfumes, the designer goods, which people with any design sense are simply no longer invested in. And of course, let's not forget watches and jewellery, of which people have, just like whisky, they've bought in as an investment because they were told it was exclusive. And they were suckered. And there's no other way to put it. They're stuck. You see this with watches, you see this with, look at the price of diamonds. I'm going on a wee detour here, but bear with me because it ties in with this. Price of diamonds is absolutely plunged because diamonds are industrially produced to higher quality more cheaply, a lot more cheaply. And the same technology is creating other gemstones. This is why people now are looking to invest more in opals. Except that opals, because they're harder to replicate industrially, people don't realise how soft and fragile, and basically they're no stronger than soapstone. Anyway, back to the whiskey. So for those of us who get beyond the consumer stage, we start there and we buy the chill filtered 40% whiskey with the caramel added, and we don't know any better, so we accept it and we enjoy it, and we buy another bottle and we enjoy that. But by time 2 or 3 years, I think, actually, it's not quite what I remember it as. The first bottle was the best bottle. Why is that? Simple answer. Because it was your foundational experience, and it was the novelty for your senses, particularly the brain, to register the smell and taste. But by the second bottle, you've bought not the novelty of the first experience, but the familiarity of the second experience, which will either match or disappoint, but doesn't very often improve on the first bottling. And this is why we start to, after a few years, look at the independent bottlers and the smaller distilleries who bottle without the chill filtration and without the caramel colour, simply because they're delivering a more natural product which is less engineered to dial in and play down the flavour, because the sort of people buying these bottles are invested in the flavour. And you'll find one of the signs of this is your average whiskey consumer is not going to sit in silence in a spare room in the house and nose a whiskey and taste a whiskey for an hour. They do not do that. Their consumption is far, far more rapid. But when we've bought a really good quality bottle of something, we love to spend the time with it because we're simply getting more out of the experience. And then we suddenly discover a new flavour note, a new sensation combination that maybe we've never had before. Or perhaps someone's recommended that Arran local barley that Ralphie reviewed a few months ago was just absolutely great value for money. So you've bought a bottle and you say, actually, I'm sitting this side by side with the standard Arran 10-year-old because it's available and reasonably priced, and I'm comparing the two, and my goodness, this is so interesting. My flavours, my sensations, my sensors, smell and taste are totally on overdrive, and I'm in heaven. And it's not cost me a fortune. And at that stage, you are so far ahead of the indifferent consumer that the whisky industry is increasingly struggling to reach. We're seeing this in wine. If you want to know what's going to happen in whisky tomorrow, look at wine today. Your average supermarket wines are junk. Yeah, they're just junk. They are mass produced, and when you over yield and have too high a yield expectation of your wine fields and your, what do they call them again? Your vineyards, that's the one, of your vineyards, and you've depleted your soil, and you've kept them going and over-yielded through the heavy use of nitrogen fertilisers, and you're losing all that glyphosate, and still your wine's not sweet enough. So what do? You add glycol. Remember there was a scandal in the 1990s? A few of the more mature malt mates, you'll remember this, when some French red wine makers were putting the same chemicals as used in car cooling fluid. They're putting into the wine. They had to remove it and it was a scandal, but people quickly forget and move on. Well, you can put a lot of chemicals into wine. You can artificially sweeten wine, no problem at all. And particularly, I'm noticing more the use of sulfates. This is the wine industry's version of chill filtration and flavour enhancement through rejuvenated casks, etc., etc. And now the wine industry is in crisis. because the discerning wine drinker is buying fewer bottles, they're buying better quality, and they wouldn't dream of buying the shelf filler out of supermarkets, which is now reserved for mid-aged ladies' hen parties because they don't want to go out to a pub and be harassed by drunken men. It happens. So what we see in wine, this brings us back to whiskey. I can already see, by the way, and this is an interesting development relating to whiskey, that there's certain wine makers, they're having to diversify their source of income because they're not selling their wine for the price they were hoping to get. And therefore they're doing what the Spanish sherry industry is doing. They're overproducing European oak casks for wine, in other words, barriques. They're never using them for wine, but they're simply toasting them and selling them on at a markup to the whiskey industry. And the whiskey industry, by the way, it's a very good way to go to barriques. I'm a big fan of European wine casks, particularly when they haven't held wine before. Because the thing about wine is it's about 12% volume. And what happens is, as soon as the cask's emptied, the alcoholic level due to evaporation goes down rapidly and the bacteria get in. And there's always residual sugars in wine. Always. So the risks of a soured wine cask are even greater than the risks of a soured sherry cask. Why would that be? Because the wine's maturing in the cask at 12 to 14% tops, but in the sherry cask it's 20%. So there's simply more alcohol to preserve the cask once it's emptied. My conclusion is this. You've noticed how I detoured there. And I started talking a little bit about whiskey forensics. And it's such an interesting conversation and such an interesting journey to make. But see, when you get experience and start to know about whiskey, you will find quite by default, you start to know more and more about what's going on behind the scenes. The good things that distilleries do, the bad things that distilleries do, where they source the casks. You'll know even more the vitality that is needed from these casks to secure a good matured result, whether it be 8 years old or 80 years old or anything in between. This is whiskey. And it's a journey that it continues to reward even after decades. And I've had this here. I've just reviewed this independent bottler of 19-year-old Irish whiskey, single cask, unchill filtered, natural colour, and it's just been fantastic. But I'm still looking for this Irish mist. If it's double distilled, I expect to see a bit of Irish mist. So I'm just going to let that one slide. But this is a phenomenal whiskey, this. And I never knew anything about it till I literally tripped over it doing a standard bi-weekly online research, what's out in the markets that nobody's talking about, nobody's interested in. Bingo. I've hit the jackpot. Sure, it cost me 165 quid. But it's not just the quality of the whiskey anymore, malt mates. When we're judging the price of a whiskey, it's the quality of the whole experience now. Our forensics, our engagement, our connectivity, the amplification of the reward as a reward for our commitment over the years to simply doing our apprenticeship and learning more. Good luck to you with your journey. My journey continues. I'll be sharing it with you again soon.